The ongoing conflict in Ukraine presents a complex operational landscape. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky indicated a willingness to support a ceasefire, yet reports confirm a significant drone offensive launched by Russian forces targeting Ukrainian positions. Concurrently, Russia alleges that Ukraine executed an assault on a critical airbase, alongside extensive drone strikes aimed at civilian infrastructure in the early hours of Wednesday. The potential for a 30-day ceasefire offered a brief moment of optimism amidst the hostilities. However, following discussions with former U.S. President Donald Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin undermined this prospect by initiating missile and drone strikes against key Ukrainian targets. The Ukrainian leadership recognized the likelihood of this escalation, as Zelensky emphasized the imperative of pursuing comprehensive peace rather than a temporary halt to hostilities. Moscow's actions have incited widespread condemnation in Kyiv, prompting an immediate Ukrainian military response to Russian provocations. Strategic strikes were executed against critical military facilities in Engels and Krasnodar, with the most substantial impact observed in Crimea. Ukrainian UAVs successfully targeted and compromised Russian air defense capabilities, resulting in impaired radar operations. Notably, the attack's most significant repercussions unfolded in the Black Sea theater. The already diminished Russian Black Sea fleet sustained further losses with the destruction of an additional warship. This incident raises critical questions regarding the stability of Russian control over Crimea and the potential for escalating military engagements. The implications of this retaliatory action necessitate a thorough examination of possible Russian countermeasures and strategic recalibrations. An in-depth analysis of Ukraine's offensive on the Crimean Peninsula reveals the deployment of kamikaze drones by Ukrainian Defense Intelligence, targeting approximately 24 Russian military facilities. These drones, equipped with advanced optical cameras, facilitated precise targeting and engagement of mobile assets. The operational effectiveness of these UAVs resulted in significant damage to Russian air and naval capabilities. Among the key targets was the tugboat Fedor Uryupin, a vessel constructed in 2010 and previously operated by Ukraine's Chornomornaftogaz before the annexation of Crimea. Reports indicate that the drone strike inflicted damage above the waterline, though the vessel remained afloat. Newly released footage exemplifies the tactics commonly employed in first-person view drone operations, underscoring the evolving nature of modern warfare. The footage presents a tactical assessment of a drone engagement, illustrating its rapid approach to the target, followed by a signal disruption immediately before impact. This confirms the operational effectiveness of Ukrainian naval drones, specifically the Sea Baby or Magura 5 uncrewed surface vehicles, USVs, in executing a successful strike against Russian naval assets. A Russian tugboat was entirely neutralized, while a transport vessel of the C-4236 project sustained significant damage. The main intelligence directorate of Ukraine has released a compelling video analysis showcasing the degradation of Russian air defense capabilities in Crimea. Over a 3-minute span, multiple radar systems were systematically targeted and neutralized using attack drones. Intelligence reports indicate that the assault resulted in the destruction of critical air defense assets, including 3 Panzer S-1 missile systems and an Mi-8 helicopter. Specifically, the destruction tally includes 248 Ya-6K radar systems, 1 Podlet air defense radar, 2 1L-125 Neobium SV radar systems, and 339 N6 Gusta 2E2 radar systems. Additionally, the fire control systems associated with the 9S19 Imbia radar, Nyabo M, 59 N6E Protivnik GE, and MIZI radars sustained damage. Notably, the S-300 SV system's launcher and command centers linked to the ST-68 and 39 N6 Costa 2E2 radars were also targeted. In total, 12 radar installations of varying types have been confirmed as destroyed. These radar systems were integral for managing airspace at multiple altitudes, particularly encountering threats from Ukrainian drones and cruise missiles. The estimated replacement cost of this destroyed equipment exceeds $500 million USD. However, the strategic implications of these losses significantly outweigh the financial considerations. The challenge for Russian forces lies in the complexity and time required to restore these radar capabilities, which are critical for operational readiness. The targeting of radar systems over missile launchers reveals a calculated strategy to incapacitate air defense divisions. By prioritizing radar stations, Ukrainian forces are effectively blinding Russian air defenses, rendering them incapable of responding to aerial threats. This analysis underscores the disproportionate impact of radar losses compared to missile systems, indicating severe operational constraints for Russian air defenses moving forward. It is essential to understand that the production cycles for radar systems in the Russian military-industrial complex are significantly slower and more resource-intensive than those for air defense systems. Even prior to sanctions, the manufacturing of radar stations demanded extensive labor hours and raw materials, a situation exacerbated under current constraints. Consequently, Russian air defense systems are among the slowest to produce, with radar systems representing a peak challenge in production complexity, severely limiting Russia's capacity to recover from these losses. Russian command anticipates that the loss of a radar station will not be compensated by new production, instead opting to reallocate functioning systems from other divisions within the rear areas. The extensive list of deactivated radar systems in Crimea, which includes various nomenclatures, underscores this operational reality. In this context, the capabilities of the Nebo-M and Kosta 2E2 radars are particularly telling. The standard air defense configuration, which typically features the S-300 or S-400 missile systems, includes the 92N2E sectoral control radar and the 91N6E circular surveillance radar. However, the frequency of operations in Crimea has led to a notable reduction in the availability of these systems. Current deployments indicate that there are insufficient 91N6Es to adequately support even a single division. To address the shortfall in comprehensive radar coverage, simpler systems such as the Nebo-M and Kosta 2E2 have been introduced to Crimea. The destruction of these radars highlights the challenges facing Russia in maintaining effective radar support for its air defense units. Additionally, the failure of the Podlyat combat radar station further illustrates the logistical difficulties in resupplying the Crimean operational group, as these systems were meant to enhance the effectiveness of the Nebo and Kosta 2E2 installations. The simultaneous deployment of these radar systems aimed to create a robust mutual reinforcement strategy, which has evidently failed. The destruction or incapacitation of these radar assets results in a significant degradation of Russian air defense capabilities in Crimea. This operational sector is currently defended by the 12th and 18th Anti-Aircraft Missile Regiments and the 3rd Radio Engineering Regiment. In light of these vulnerabilities, the strategic drone operations conducted by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry represent a notable success in compromising Russian radar surveillance. The blinding of Russian air defenses in Crimea has significant strategic implications. The air defense network has been stretched thin between active combat zones and rear areas, where radars and systems have been relocated to mitigate losses. This fracturing of defense capabilities is audible nightly across various regions in Russia. The predicted decline in Russia's air defense effectiveness presents a tactical opportunity for Ukrainian forces to launch renewed assaults on occupied Crimea, specifically aimed at degrading Russian military assets further. The specifics of the weaponry employed in these impactful attacks warrant examination. While Gers's footage does not indicate the use of drone boats, Their deployment is the most plausible scenario given Crimea's distance from front lines. An alternate, albeit less likely method involves the use of FPV drones launched from closer proximity by partisans resisting Russian control. If drone boats were indeed utilized, it would mark a significant advancement in FPV operational deployment. The integration of drone technologies marks a significant evolution in modern warfare. First disclosed in January, this synergy involved FPV, first-person view drones being deployed from unmanned surface vessels, USVs. These systems have effectively targeted Russian Pantsir I air defense systems and OSA missile systems in the southern Kherson region of Ukraine. Utilizing USVs to launch FPV drones considerably enhances the operational range of these agile and rapid response weapons, allowing them to engage targets that typically necessitate more costly long-range strike capabilities. Ukraine's ongoing operations against Russian oil infrastructure underscore the effectiveness of this strategy, as they also possess an array of long-range drone assets. A critical operational advantage of deploying FPV drones is their resilience against conventional air defense systems, which have been the focus of these strikes. Unlike the front lines, where FPV drones present a constant threat, Russia's countermeasure capabilities in Crimea are markedly less developed, creating vulnerabilities for their forces. This convergence of FPV drones and unmanned surface vessels represents a notable advancement in Ukraine's Black Sea drone warfare. The innovative use of uncrewed systems has included the adaptation of air-to-air missiles launched from USVs targeting Russian aerial assets. These operations not only exemplify Ukrainian technical ingenuity, but also systematically undermine Russian air defense and radar infrastructures in Crimea. By neutralizing these systems, Ukraine can potentially exploit gaps in Russia's overall air defense architecture over the peninsula and the northwestern Black Sea. Such strategic disruptions are pivotal for the operational effectiveness of long-range precision strike weapons, including Storm Shadow and Scalp EG missiles, as well as kamikaze drones. Ukraine's asymmetric warfare approach extends to direct confrontations with the Russian Black Sea Fleet, where attacks on naval vessels and helicopters have resulted in significant losses for Russian maritime forces. The defensive measures employed by Russia, including the deployment of Mi-8 HIP helicopters, underscore the ongoing challenge posed by Ukrainian USVs. The frequency and intensity of these attacks suggest a potential for Ukraine to degrade Russia's air and missile defense capabilities ahead of a more extensive aerial offensive. While aspirations for reclaiming Crimea, annexed by Russia in 2014, remain a strategic objective for Ukraine, the current geopolitical landscape complicates this aim amidst ongoing peace negotiations. Each offensive operation targeting the peninsula not only serves as a tactical blow to Russian forces, but also critically impacts President Vladimir Putin's image and control, prompting a strategic withdrawal of elements of the Russian Navy and Air Force from Crimea. The strategic situation in Crimea is deteriorating, with an estimated 100,000 Russians having evacuated the peninsula. This mass exodus is primarily driven by fears of a potential Ukrainian offensive. Military personnel and Russian officials are urgently relocating their families to mainland Russia, indicating a significant decline in morale among the occupying forces. Reports from Atesh partisans highlight that this panic is prompting property sales and preparations for departure, particularly among families of soldiers and pro-Russian officials. The Ukrainian Armed Forces General Staff has corroborated these developments, detailing an uptick in the forced evictions of specific civilian categories in Crimea. Notably, Russian military personnel stationed at Paravon are prioritizing family evacuations to Russia. The Crimean National Resistance Group reports that a comprehensive list of individuals and families slated for urgent evacuation has been compiled, with approved plans already in place in several cities. Evacuation logistics are particularly noteworthy in Krasnoparkovsk, a northern town in Crimea near the Ukrainian mainland, where preparations are reportedly underway. This shift underscores a growing anxiety among the occupying forces regarding potential Ukrainian military actions. In Simferopol, the administrative center of Crimea, evacuation measures are being methodically executed, reflecting heightened operational readiness. In Simferopol, civil servants are undergoing detailed briefings to prepare for possible evacuation scenarios. State employees are required to complete questionnaires documenting the names and details of evacuees and their families, illustrating a well-organized approach towards potential mass relocations. The evacuation planning in Crimea is comprehensive, utilizing air, land, and maritime routes. Identified evacuation pathways are designed to facilitate secure exits for military personnel and their families. This situation is compounded by a broader panic affecting the peninsula, manifesting in a significant downturn in the real estate market. Construction firms operating in Russian-occupied Crimea have suspended activities due to an oversupply in the real estate sector, signaling a drastic slowdown in economic activity. Investor withdrawal from the region is evident, further destabilizing the area that has been under Russian control since 2014, bordered by Turkey, Bulgaria, Romania, Georgia, Ukraine, and Russia. Ukraine's territorial integrity, particularly concerning Crimea, remains at risk amid ongoing diplomatic negotiations. Reports indicate that the Trump administration is contemplating the recognition of Crimea as Russian territory as part of a potential peace agreement to conclude hostilities with Moscow. Additionally, there have been discussions about encouraging the United Nations to adopt a similar stance, which would have significant implications for the region's military dynamics. The potential recognition of Crimea by the United States as Russian territory could significantly alter the strategic landscape in the region. This consideration aligns with Russian President Vladimir Putin's long-standing claims. As the Trump administration engages in dialogue with Moscow and explores a possible 30-day ceasefire, discussions surrounding the division of military assets have emerged. However, no formal decision has been made regarding Crimea, as various strategic options are being evaluated in the broader context of conflict resolution. The White House has refrained from commenting on these developments. Following the publication of these discussions, National Security Council spokesman Brian Hughes clarified that no commitments have been made and that negotiations will not take place through media channels. Should the U.S. officially recognize Crimea, occupied and annexed by Russia in 2014, it will likely provoke a strong backlash from European allies and the Ukrainian government, which staunchly opposes any territorial concessions. The international community, including the United States and Ukraine, continues to assert that Crimea is Ukrainian territory despite the ongoing Russian occupation. The strategic significance of Crimea cannot be overstated, as Ukraine has consistently maintained that the conflict originated with and will conclude around this region. The ongoing military advancements and infrastructure developments in Crimea underscore its importance, including military installations, air defense systems, and naval capabilities. Russia has felt the repercussions of Ukraine's military initiatives across various domains. The operational readiness of the Black Sea Fleet has been compromised, forcing it to retreat to more secure locations, and there has been a noticeable exodus of the Russian population from Crimea. However, any potential shift in U.S. policy regarding Crimea could overshadow these Ukrainian military achievements. The implications of diplomatic negotiations on Ukraine's military strategy and territorial claims remain uncertain. The upcoming period is critical, with significant developments anticipated that could determine the future of Crimea and its strategic value in the ongoing conflict. Thank you for your attention.